last week, which was learn something from Levi Yitzchak, from the Rebbe's father.
Okay.
And the Rebbe's father.
Learning from the Rebbe's father.
What?
In the discourse of learning from the Rebbe's father, we should all hear good news and everything.
Amen.
Okay. And why is the Sefer called Toras Menachem?
So Toras Menachem is because these are the collected discourses that the Rebbe spoke about what his father had written.
Okay, so they were memoriam.
No, discourses, sichos.
Okay.
I know that in the Chabad, for some reason, they translate mimer as discourse.
Right.
There's some validity to that, because ma'amar means to speak, and discourse is to speak. But sicha is more discourse.
Okay.
And a mimer really is the way that we understand it today. And again, argue about this till you turn blue. A mimer really is an essay. The way that the Rebbeim wrote them, they're really essays.
Initially, it was always written.
And some of them were initially written, not all of them. Rav Shav used to write before he spoke. I don't think that the Alter Rebbe wrote what he was about to speak. I think he spoke spontaneously.
Okay.
The Rebbe certainly didn't write down what he was about to speak. If he wrote anything, he wrote points for himself. But he didn't bring them into the Verbrengen, and he never read from the points.
Mm-hmm.
These are different styles. In any case, these are discourses that the Rebbe discussed what his father had written. And as I've mentioned previously, his father was the greatest Kabbalist of the previous generation. He passed away in 1945, in mid-1945, Kaf Av.
Chile.
Huh?
In the town of Chile.
Yeah, I don't know the names of these Russian towns. Siberian towns.
No, it's not.
It wasn't Siberia.
It's Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. And
we've been there.
You were there once, and you said it had a tremendous impact on you.
Yeah.
A lot of people who go there for some reason. It has a big impact. So what does it mean that
it had a tremendous impact on the pharmacies?
Who
were usually very blasé, and they said, "Okay, we've been there, done that," but they kept wanting to go back to the Beis HaKvoros again and again. It was very interesting.
Okay. So what does it mean that he was the greatest Kabbalist? Well, if you're into this type of learning, then, and you've read what's around, then you see that there are certain levels of analyzing the Zohar, which is really what all Kabbalah goes back to in the end. Either the Zohar or other sources, but really in the end it's the Zohar. I think we mentioned before that the Arizal's, Rabbi Isaac Luria's great contribution to the study of Kabbalah was that he was the first one to really write a commentary on the three most difficult passages in the Zohar called the Idrot. Mostly the Idra Rabba and Idra Zuta, which are the discussions of the Paratzufim of Abba and Ima and Atik and Za. It's really the hardcore of the Kabbalah, of the Zohar. And in general, the level of learning that people did on the Zohar it's nowhere near this. Meaning, Levi Yitzchak, he had I think once in a generation knowledge of Nigla and Nistar together, meaning both the revealed and concealed traditions together. He knew Gemara so well, and he had what is probably the most driving force behind all of Kabbalistic learning, which is he had a lot of mathematical knowledge. That mathematical knowledge carried over to his son, to the Rebbe. The Rebbe, when he was 16, wrote a 600-page research paper, you could call it, on mathematics, on a certain topic in mathematics that I don't want to mention right now. But and that we don't have that. We know from his mother that he did that. It was lost at some point. But all the children, all three of his sons, went into mathematics in one way or another. And his eldest son, Yisrael Ari Leib, he was a mathematician. That was his. So they had definitely mathematical knowledge in the family, and this played out in his learning of the Zohar at a level that nobody had done before. The only one who's close to him is who for the first time this Shabbos I saw that he mentions him, which means that he studied him, is the Komarna, the Heichal HaBracha, which is probably the most important marriage of Chassidus and Kabbalah before Levi Yitzchak.
When?
Komarno is the third generation of Chassidus.
Okay.
And he learned by a Talmud of his uncle was a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov. And he also learned by another teacher, Tzvi Hirsch of Zidichov. And they had a very direct tradition from the Baal Shem Tov. So Komarna is very important. And as I learn more, I see that there's a thread running from Komarna to Levi Yitzchak and to my own teacher, to Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg. And what really sets them apart is their knowledge of the Baal Shem Tov and their mathematical knowledge. Of the three of them, Rav Ginsburg is obviously a real mathematician. The others are just what you would call recreational mathematicians. But they know enough that it shows. Okay? So let's see. So so what happened was that in Chabad they decided at some point to take what was the original notes that Levi Yitzchak wrote on his copy of the Zohar, and combine it together with the Zohar, with the original Zohar, to bring the original Zohar passage, and then to combine it with what the Rebbe's discourses on this passage were, because they tend to be abstract, quite abstract. And the Rebbe brought them in his genius down into a way that really has meaning and application for every person. So what we're going to look at now is a passage from the Zohar on Va'era, Daf Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph, and we read like this: Rabbi Shimon Hava Yativ Yom Achad. So it's going to take us a little bit of time because we're going to read the Zohar and translate it, and then we'll get into Levi Yitzchak's notes on it, and then we'll get into the Rebbe's applications from it.
Levi Yitzchak's notes. This is the bottom here.
So in the Ktav Rashi, in the Rashi script, is the Zohar itself,
right?
And then on the next page is Levi Yitzchak's notes.
Okay, and where's the Rebbe's comment?
And then it changes font again on page Nun Tet, and then it becomes the Rebbe's discourse.
No, okay.
Okay?
Fine.
So Rabbi Shimon Ave Yativ Yom Achad. So Rabbi Shimon was sitting one day with Rabbi Elazar Brei and Rabbi Elazar, his son, Imei, with him. Rabbi Abba Imei, and Rabbi Abba, who is the one who actually transcribed the Zohar. Okay? Amar Rabbi Elazar. So the three of them were sitting. So Rabbi Elazar said, Haikra dichtiv va'ira l'Avram v'Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Gomer. Ma'u va'ira va'adaber mi baile. So he says, it says, and I showed myself. Our parsha begins with the verse, Elohim said to Moshe, I am Hashem. And then he says, and I have shown myself to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And says Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon's son, why does it say, I showed myself? It should have said, I spoke to them. Okay? Because he never showed himself. Amar le Elazar Brei Raza ilayu. So apparently Rabbi Shimon answers, my son Elazar, this is a great secret. It's a supernal secret. Ta'chaze. So come see. Right? The Zohar always says, come and see. The Gemara, especially the Bavli, says, Tashma. Mm-hmm. Come and listen. So, come and see. What are we going to see? Id gavnin de mitchazian, vid gavnin de lo mitchazian. There are colors that can be seen and colors that cannot be seen. Ve'elin inun raza ilad me'emnuta. And these, both those colors, apparently light in different colors that can be seen and those that can't be seen, are supernal secrets of faith. Me'emnuta. And people do not know them and they don't look at them. And those that can be seen, no man was privileged to them, meaning to recognize them, or maybe even to use them, until the patriarchs came and they became used by them, or they became part of them. And that's why it says, and I showed them. Okay? I showed them my name Kel Shakai. It's not just that I spoke to them with this name.
So What exactly did he show them?
Oh, so right away we know that when he says colors, he means the sfirot, because that's the main metaphor for the sfirot in the Zohar, is colors. Mm-hmm. So he means Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes. Those are the three colors. So Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, to lead a life that's based on loving kindness, to lead a life that's based on might, to lead a life that's based on divine compassion. These were not led, these were not kaimu alayhu, they were not integrated into people until the patriarchs came. And that's what he means by the colors that can be seen. Obviously, the colors that cannot be seen would be the intellectual sfirot, and even more the keter.
Into somebody's life.
What?
Seen means that they were integrated into somebody's life.
Okay. Okay. ועל דא כתיב וירא דחמו אינון גבנין דתגליין ומן גבנין דתגליין אינון דקל שקאי דאינון גבנין בחזו אילה ואילן התחזיה. So he says, what were these three, I'm saying three, he didn't say three, but what are these colors that were seen? They are alluded to by the name Kel Shakai. Okay? And these are the supernal view of these colors. So what are they? So we know in many places in the Zohar, he explains this passage. It's not such a secret passage. He says this means the three colors, like we said, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Why is this related to Kel Shakai? It's very interesting. When you do, here none of them are going to bring this. I'm bringing this from somewhere else. But Kel is equal to 31, and Shakai is equal to 314. So one of the first things that happens is when you add Kel and Shakai together, you get 31 plus 314. You get 345. Who's that? Who's 345? Moshe Rabbeinu. So Kel Shakai, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is always hinted to in the Zohar by the name Kel Shakai. Because the Zohar always does mathematics. It always does the gematria. Here it doesn't say this. But there's something else that the Zohar doesn't say, but we know. When we hear the numbers 31 and 314, so if you have anything of a little bit of a recreational mathematical bent to you, so right away you notice that these are the beginnings of pi. Right? You see the Kel is 3.1. That's like 31. There's no difference in math whether you write 31 or 3.1. The decimal point doesn't matter where you put it. It's still the same number as far as mathematicians are concerned. And 3.14 is 314. And if we add to this the fact that we have three patriarchs, so we have three. So we have the development of pi, and Rav Yitzchak actually showed that in this pasuk, you also can find 3.141, meaning 3,141.
Pi is something kadosh.
Pi is the, call it, bridge between the natural and the human. The nature is all based on pi, because nature is curved. Nature is not straight. And we've talked about this. So nature is basically the igulim. What does this mean? It means that nature is here for us to look at in such a way that we should see that God is concealed within nature. But in which part of nature? Going back to our classes from what we've been learning since the beginning of the year. So it would be that we're looking at the static aspect of godliness, because nature is cyclic; it doesn't change. Static doesn't have to mean unchanging altogether. It depends on what level of derivative you're looking at. There's the first derivative, second derivative, third derivative. Basically, what you're doing is you're asking, how much change is there? At what power is the change happening? So human beings like the world to be linear. We don't like things that change too fast because we can't keep up with it. So basically, nature is very good because it really repeats. And the laws are constant. So there's a very static element to nature. So when you look at nature, and nature is curved, you're actually looking at the unchanging aspect of godliness. But the human being, even though we prefer linear, we're changing a lot more. And we said that that's the point of life, right? You can't come into this world and expect to just vegetate and not change. The purpose of this world is to change. You can't come out the way you went in.
Change the world.
Both. But most of all, you have to embrace change. Okay? You have to accept the fact that there's change. So in that sense, human beings they like linear things. That's why our thinking is more linear. We like things to be linear. We make sense out of things when they're linear. But we're really about change. And that's what's called v'natati lecha malachim ben ha'omdim ha'ele. That even the angels, relative to a human being, are unchanging. They're constant, relatively speaking, meaning their derivative is the first power. Okay? The most they do is they change velocity. They don't change their acceleration, I'll put it that way. But a human being can change up to 20 derivatives, meaning there's a lot of change going on in every person's life all the time. And you have to keep up with the change. And at some point, you stop keeping up. And that's called that you lose out to entropy, and you finished what you needed to do. The question really in life is what change are you going to work on? There are people who work on changing their oil in their car, and that's the most change that they do in their life. Obviously, nobody's that simple, but it's an extreme way of saying you're dealing with changes that have little meaning. And minor changes, or minorly meaningful changes, or you can deal with changes that have a lot of meaning. So some people think that when you're dealing with changes that have a lot of meaning, it means you should be a politician. I think that if you really want to deal with changes that have a lot of meaning, you should open up a beis medrash and start dealing with how people see Torah. And there's change that is truly meaningful. And if you learn Torah from a change perspective and seeing how things change over time, I think it has a ton of meaning. And it's worthwhile to make that your business. And if you can get somebody, especially today when there's so much money in the world, but if you get somebody to support you in learning Torah and writing about Torah and sharing Torah, so that's a better business of change than any other type of...
Yeah, but you've got to have some yeda.
Okay, you have to learn. Obviously, you have to know a lot. You have to know math, for instance. Okay. So these are the three colors, and they hint.
These three colors, they're not the prime colors, no?
Oh, that's a good question. In the Zohar, they're pretty much the prime colors. They're blue, which is chesed, and red, which is might, and green is usually rachmim, tiferes. And even Tiferet sometimes is just all the colors together. Anyways, getting back to your question, pi in that sense is the great bridge between the human world and the natural world. Again, because the natural world is curved, so you'll find pi in everything that you describe in the natural world. That was the big discovery of the 18th century, even a little bit already in the 17th century, but in the 18th century with the derivation of calculus, they began to see the importance of pi in everything that they looked at in the natural world. Whereas in the human world, pi is not so important. In fact, pi drives us a little crazy. We don't know what to do with it because it's a transcendental number. But it bridges because we have these approximations. 3.1, and 3.14. These were the common 22 divided by 7 is well known. There's also 355 divided by 113, which is the best approximation of pi with numbers under 100,000, which is pretty impressive that it gives you to 5 points after the decimal point accuracy. In any case, so he mentions begavnin de le'ela stimin de lo itchazean lokaim inish alayu bar mimoshe. And the supernal, the higher colors that are concealed, that nobody can see, the only person who was able to integrate them, who was able to stand upon them, meaning to recognize them, was Moshe. And we just said that Kel Shakai is a hint to Moshe himself, because they're equal. V'adaktiv, and this is what the verse means, Ushmi Hashem lo nodati lehem. This is what it means that my name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, I did not reveal to them. Lo itgaleti lon begavni nilain. So I showed them Kel Shakai, the three lower colors, okay, of Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, loving kindness, might, and beauty. But I did not reveal to them my name Havaya, says the Zohar. Here the name Havaya is alluding to the higher colors, meaning the higher sfirot, the intellectual sfirot. And we know that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had an idea that these sfirot existed, but for them they were like their God, in the sense that they were their inspiration, but they weren't able to integrate them into their lives yet. What's the difference? The difference is, of course, whether you have Torah or you don't. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he wrote the Torah, he's bringing down the two intellectual sfirot, wisdom and understanding, into our world. That's the main power of Torah, that it also reveals the wisdom and the understanding. The two higher colors here, as he calls them, that cannot be integrated apart from, or were not integrated before Moshe Rabbeinu. Tachaze. So now he says, Arba neorininu. There are four colors. Tlat mina yustimin v'chad di'idgalia. So now he says like something new. There are four colors. We know that there are four colors. What is he talking about? That three are concealed and one is revealed. So now he's talking about the colors in Moshe Rabbeinu's world, meaning the sfirot that Moshe Rabbeinu sees. Three are concealed, one is revealed. Nehora dinhir. Now he gives them names. The light that lights, or the light that shines. It's hard because in Hebrew there are 13 different synonyms for light. I think the most out of probably any language in the world. I think any language has, it's like snow for the Eskimos with 22 words, or however many. But in Hebrew there are 13 bona fide synonyms for light. They're brought down by the Malbim. The Malbim was the first one to collect all of them. But in the Zohar you see this a lot. And usually Levi Yitzchak, because of the depth of his learning, he will explain these words in detail. In this case, he focuses on something else. Nehora de Nahir, light that lights. Nehora de Zahara, light that shines. Ve'inun, ve'iu Nahir, kizehiru dishmaya bedakyu, and it shines like the light of the pure firmament, the pure sky. Nehora de Argavna, de Natil kol Nehorin, and then there's the light. Argavna is like, you hear it, it's like it's a type of red, like Argaman. Argavna de Natil kol Nehorin, and Nehora de lo Nahir, and light that doesn't shine, you don't see it. Istake legabe ilin, it looks at these three, venatilon, and it takes them. V'itchazian inu neorin bekeashishata lekabel shimsha ve'ilin klei tekamran stimin v'kayamim alhai di'idgalia. And so these three are taken down into the one that is revealed, okay? And they shine in it in the same way that the wick that's lighted inside a glass, what do you call these, lantern, the way that you see the light shining out from that glass lantern. And now he gives us an interesting explanation. This is what it means, Moshe zacha be'aspaklaria de nahara, de kaima lahu de lo nahara. And that's what it means when the sages say that Moshe Rabbeinu saw through a clear glass. What did he see through the clear glass? These three lights that cannot be usually seen. These three colors that cannot be seen. Okay? What is he alluding to? It would seem pretty simple. He's talking about Keter, Chochma, and Bina, which cannot be seen. And they shone for Moshe Rabbeinu through his Da'at. And Da'at is the last light, the one that can be seen, the consciousness. Okay? So you following? Mm-hmm. Okay. But the rest of the world can't see these three lights through the one light that can be seen, meaning their consciousness is not clear. And so even though they have wisdom and understanding, even though they have some inkling of the crown, they can't fully perceive it. They perceive it as if they're looking through a translucent pane, and it's colored in some way. It's not the pure light. Ve'abhan havu chaman migo ilain gavnin di'idgalian inun stimin de'chaim alayu. But the patriarchs, like we said, it's not that they had no idea that there are wisdom and understanding and the crown. Rather, they had some understanding of this, and for them, they saw it through the lights that did shine in them. Meaning, Avram saw wisdom through loving kindness, which is underneath it. And loving kindness was integrated into Avram, so he had an inkling of wisdom. That's why he called it. We say Elokei Avram. We mean the inspiration of Avram. It's like the soul within his loving kindness is this wisdom. And Yitzchak, in his might, in his gvura, he has an inkling of bina. So it inspires him. It's like the soul of his gvura. And Yaakov, his soul is not dat, but the keter, the crown itself. Sometimes we say that it's Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why the Zohar sometimes says Moshe milego, Yaakov milevar. That Moshe is on the inside, because we said Moshe saw through dat. In the Zohar, Moshe is associated with all the sfirot, but the sphere that he's most connected to is like in this passage with dat. Again, he didn't mention the word dat, but it doesn't matter. We understand what he means. Or we think we understand what he means. And in the dat is shining, inspiring him, the crown. And so Yaakov, he's on the middle axis, he's getting from the two levels above him. So that's how the Avos, that's how the patriarchs had a vision, had some idea of these higher sfirot, wisdom, understanding, and crown.
But these were attributes that were given to them.
Okay.
It wasn't so much that they strove for them. It's like a present.
Not so simple. I understand. They worked very hard to integrate these aspects of the divine into them.
Mm-hmm.
Avram spent his life doing acts of loving kindness. Right. Yitzchak spent his life. We talked a lot about this year. He spent his life in standing very firmly, and working the land, even though that wasn't their first inclination. They wanted to be spiritual people, and he fought very hard to do things that were very earthly, and come down into reality. And that's when you understand understanding as the inspiration behind that. It's very clear, because understanding bina is a lot about it's like the mother. It's like saying Mother Earth. It's the same idea. So yeah, of all the avos, he was of all the patriarchs, Yitzchak was the only one who tilled the land. He was a farmer, and he dug wells, and he did all these things that are related to Mother Earth. And in that sense, he's being inspired by this mother, by this ima bina. And Yaakov, who had his trouble with his children, his big difficulty was getting these 12 guys to build a nation. It was nation building. It was very, very complex. So it's not surprising that his inspiration is Moshe Rabbeinu's soul, even though Moshe Rabbeinu was obviously not born yet. But Yaakov strives all the time. He knows that in the end, the only way you're going to get these 12 different people, so different, to cooperate and create one nation is through the Torah. That's the big. If there's a big lesson that we take from Genesis over to Exodus, it's that in Genesis it's just tribes. It's just 12 guys who have children, and they don't get along too well. And Moshe Rabbeinu is able to unify everything by virtue of, it lasts for a while because they were in bondage together, and he takes them out. Okay, so there's that syndrome that we were in a terrible place together, so we love each other now for a while. But that wears off pretty quickly. And then the only thing that really keeps the Jewish people together as a people, all these tribes of the sons of Jacob together as the children of Israel, is the Torah. And without the Torah, there would be no unification. There would be no unity between them. And it hasn't changed a cent. You can't create unity through the land of Israel. It's a nice place to be. It has a lot of mitzvos. It's holy. It's this. It's that. It's a lot of things, but it can't create unity, because they will just break up into their tribes, which is exactly what happened during the first temple period. There was never any peace between the tribes. Why? So I don't know why, except I can tell you when there was peace between the tribes and nobody remembered which tribe they're from anymore. Even though, like we've said many times, this myth that 10 tribes were gone is not true. Some of them were taken into exile, but many of them remained, and they went out into the Babylonian exile with Judah and Benjamin together. Everybody knew their tribes, and we see that when they came back, they still knew which tribe they came from. But you see that at the end of the Second Temple period, thanks to the teaching of Torah by the sages, by Chazal, the whole thing of tribes is gone. You don't know any more about it. You don't hear any more about it. Nobody cares. People who care about it, they're just nostalgic or something. I don't know what they want. There's no need for it. The only thing that you need are Kohanim and Levites. What does it matter anymore? What tribe somebody came from? It doesn't matter. In the same way that in 100 or 150, 200 years, nobody will remember that they came from Finland, or they came from Malaysia, or they came from Kenya. Nobody will care anymore, because the purpose of the Torah is to make peace. So that's how Torah makes peace. Okay? So it's a very important thing that the uncovering of the Torah in the Second Temple, the way that the sages began to teach Torah, it erased these tribal differences. Unfortunately, in modern Israel, you see the same problem. Even though they're not tribes, but you see that people are torn between different viewpoints. Mamish torn. So is it as bad as it was when they were tribes? No, because there's nothing, although some people will say Moroccans are a tribe and Yekim are a tribe, Jews from Germany are a tribe, and this and that. But it's not really true. But in the end, only Torah is able to unify. So that's why Yaakov, with his tremendous difficulties with his family, with his sons, he was being inspired by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Moshe Rabbeinu's soul. He saw that it was possible to unify this, but you have to find the Torah language to do that. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was able to do. But anyway, the patriarchs had some inkling of these. Ushmi Hashem lo nadati lehem Eilen gvanini lain stemin dezarin dezaka dezachaba Moshe listak labon. And what it means that by my name Avaya I did not reveal myself to them, that is referring to these four intellectual sfirot, as we would call them: crown, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, that were not revealed openly to the patriarchs, but they were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu zoche. He was able to merit to receive them. So we finished half the Zohar passage. Tomorrow we'll finish the second half, which is actually the main part of what the Rebbe's father is going to discuss.
Okay.
And we won't read everything from what the Rebbe's father says, because it's kind of long. We'll try to finish tomorrow the Zohar and the Rebbe's father. And then on Wednesday, we'll read the discourse from the Rebbe.
By the way, is also a magic number like pi?
Yeah, it's also transcendental. We only know a few transcendental numbers, even though it's proven.
Also important in use.
Yeah, 2 point for you. That's the main number for you. I'm waiting for years for you to come and say you're sponsoring the book.
Which book?
2.718 is how E begins. What's equal to 2,718 in the Torah? I've told you before. יברכך השם וישמרך, יאר השם פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא השם פניו אליך ויעשה לך שלום, is equal to 2,718. So we have a whole book, 3 volumes, over 1,000 pages of, you know what? I'll send you the first chapter, the first 40 pages.
You wrote it, or Yitzchak?
It's his notes. I edit.
In Hebrew or English?
It's in Hebrew. You can't write this stuff in English. I wouldn't even try.
Okay.
Say that.
All right.
We'll see you tomorrow. No stories today. It's not.
Step by step.
It's uncommon.
First, you have to get me out of my
Okay.
introspection. Tomorrow we'll start with the stories.
Okay.
I have some good stories.